As she came plowing through the water, she looked like a huge half-submerged crocodile. At her prow, I could see the iron ram projecting straight forward.
The Confederacy had begun the war with no navy whatsoever. But by the fall of 1861, Confederate engineers were bolting iron plates to the hull of the steam frigate Merrimack, building a warship more powerful than anything the Union had. News of the monster quickly reached the North. Secretary of War Stanton feared she would steam up the Potomac and shell the White House. There was probably only one man in America who could stop the Merrimack, and he was mad at the Navy. The Swedish-born inventor John Ericsson was proud, vain, and cranky, and felt he had been cheated out of payment for services to the government years before. But when Secretary of the Navy Gideon Welles begged him to do something to stop the Merrimack, Ericsson came up with an extraordinary design. His ship would have only 2 guns to the Merrimack's 10, but they would be mounted on a revolving turret, and though his vessel would be made entirely of iron, Ericsson assured everybody that the sea shall ride over her and she shall live in it like a duck. Professional Navy men dismissed the plan, but Lincoln overruled them, and just 100 days later, on January 30th, 1862, Ericsson's ship slid into Manhattan's East River. He called her the Monitor, and there had never been anything like her. The single vessel contained 47 patentable inventions.
We ran first to the New York side and then to Brooklyn, and so back and forth across the river, like a drunken man on a sidewalk. We found she would not answer her rudder at all.
Once at sea, water spilled in, ventilators failed. The ship filled with gas, her crew began to faint. But the Monitor kept limping south. 400 miles away, off the coast of Virginia, the Merrimack was waiting. Saturday, March 8th, was wash day for the Union fleet in Hampton Roads, Virginia. Laundry was drying on the rigging of the Union warships when the Confederate Merrimack headed straight for the USS Cumberland. The Cumberland opened fire, but the shots bounced harmlessly off the Merrimack's side. The Confederate ship rammed the Cumberland, then stood in so close their muzzles almost touched. The Cumberland sank in shallow water. The Merrimack went on to set the USS Congress afire, drove the USS Minnesota aground, then drew back for the night. For one day, the Confederate Navy ruled the sea. At 1 o'clock that morning, the crew of the battered Minnesota saw a strange-looking ship draw up alongside them in the darkness.
Close alongside the Minnesota, there was a craft such as the eyes of a seaman never looked upon before. An immense shingle floating on the water with a gigantic cheese box rising from its center. No sails, no wheels, no smokestack, no guns. What could it be?
The Monitor had arrived. The next morning, the epic Battle of Ironclads began. Hull to hull, the two ships hammered away at each other, so close they collided 5 times as the men inside, half-blind with smoke, loaded and fired. After 4.5 hours, the Merrimack drew off. It was her only fight. 2 months later, rather than surrender their ship, the Confederates blew her up when they were forced out of Norfolk. Both sides set to work building more ironclads, while Europe watched in worried fascination. From From the moment the two ships opened fire that Sunday morning, every other Navy on Earth was obsolete.